After the third pass of the Sekiro, I wanted more, but I learned the game itself and could pass with my eyes closed without much difficulty. On Nexus, this is a site of mods for games from developers from all over the world. I poked around a bit, and found the mod that was spoken about best name. According to the trailer, it seemed to me something very unusual, literally a new game. I thought. I downloaded and launched, and then I was raped more than in any game before. But unlike the original, I didn't like it by itself. Sekiro, for some reason it is considered a difficult game, from the same apparently people who consider Kafka difficult. But compared to this mod, the original acts as like a children's platformer against the fiend of hell. The creator of the mod apparently suffered from numerous deviations and gave out what From Software themselves were apparently afraid to do. It was as if he had revived the darkest fears of the Sekiro players and combined them in one place. Imagine already from the start you are super frail, and you are constantly humiliated by those who are artificially stronger than you. Does it remind you of anything? Reading the description, I didn't think that everything would be so serious. I thought the author would just sensitively increase the health and stamina of the bosses, and the so-called hard mod would run out, as I was wrong. Going to the main menu, I noticed that it had changed to say that. I was surprised. There was nothing to say what Ascend to conceal. It was the most pleasant memory from this fashion. Let's get straight to the main point without first impressions. Each boss now has an extra life. Each boss now has a more aggressive moveset. If they used to stand and far away, waiting for you to touch them timidly, then now they drive you into a corner, and as if they have no respite. Each boss is now spending stamina much slower and you are much faster, which is why you will be killed in almost every battle because you have run out of stamina and the enemy does not, while in the original the ratio was equal. Also, the author wouldn't be himself if he hadn't added a lot of new bosses who have become the hallmark of fashion. Do not be charmed. In fact, it turns out that this is part of the copied bosses, which are not particularly original, just ninjas with more techniques than in the original, and part of the restored bosses that were cut out by the From Software themselves. You should not expect something straight out of the roof, but as far as I understand, the Sekiro engine is not particularly suitable for introducing something new from scratch, so it's stupid to wait for it. New bosses fit perfectly into the ant, do not violate the overall picture, and most often there is no feeling that they are superfluous or unnecessary except for one guy, but more on that later. There is nothing special about the new bosses, they do not represent, but the very fact that this is something new which was not in the original, something unknown, excites and gives intrigue, which, alas, ends faster than interesting videos on my channel. And how to fight with them you don't know. With these new mobs you can hang out for a long time on seemingly something secondary, despite the fact that the original bosses have not become noticeably stronger. That's why there is a certain resonance in the head when a homeless man in a well turns out to be stronger than the king of the castle who has devoted his whole life to martial arts. Seriously, did it seem strange to me alone? Many bosses have become stronger than full-fledged bosses, and they are ruffling a lot of nerves. Why? As a rule, clashes with them take place in small rooms or dark spaces where there is no place at all to turn around and feel comfortable, not to mention where to retreat, because in the original when you get hammered in the stamina you go to rest in a corner, and there is no corner here. You are cornered and quickly killed, because your stamina runs out much faster than the enemies. Because of this, the endurance game turns into a real survival game. I must say right away I just couldn't handle the whole game with this mod and gave up about the middle. To a date with Gintiro on the roof, some fierce fiery raven wouldn't let me, who has a heartbreaking moveset, summons and a long invulnerability to attacks. On the updated ninja in the well I lost a clean 2 hours of time, and one only thanks to luck. The fact is that there is little space, and he has no windows for blows when he gets tired. As a result, he constantly exhausted me and killed me when endurance ran out. Everyone has the tactics of exhausting here today. Forget those times when you took out a guard in 2 strikes. Now this guard takes out you in 2 strikes and he dies in 40 strokes. What could be more fun, right? Thank God I just ran around them the whole game and did not interfere in the conflict. This mod will make a pacifist out of you against your will. Similarly, I spent an hour of time on the legendary giant in the stocks at the beginning. Now he is not afraid of fire. He will beat you and he has more health 2-3 times, despite the fact that there is still an extra life. But compared to the Raven in the middle, it's still a very simple MOBA, and all these flowers that I have described fade against the background of the fact that there is practically no useful loot on the map that has disappeared, and you now have 2-3 flasks with treatment, not 5-6 as before, and most importantly they restore less health. In the original, you could collect lollipops, thereby simplifying some moments for yourself. Now, forget about them, only 2 hilky, only hardcore. Is that fair? This is a balance. You are just artificially made weaker, and the enemies are stronger. Now there is no battle on equal terms, only you are like a hunted beast, which is not fair to have. Previously, you could get some advantage if you pumped the prosthesis and its devices. Now the tools for crafting it seem to have disappeared somewhere. The question is why? Not to say that they were super useful, but some moments greatly simplified, especially with bosses when a gadget pressed in time took away a lot of stamina from the enemy. Now not only are the enemies stronger, now you are constantly put in a more vulnerable position where you are just waiting for them to hit you, and as if you can't hit back hard either. And all this is extremely artificially done, and almost always it does not depend on your skill, almost always it depends on luck. So you came to a new location, grappled with the crowd, and you were killed in the back, because you just didn't expect that there was someone there in some kind of hiding place. Or you came to pile on the boss and the boss showed some new random ability, which is almost impossible to react to and evade, to steam off and took off a lot of stamina for you. It is now impossible to predict or learn it, despite the fact that in the original, the mob set of each boss was quite easy to remember. They relied on a certain set of strikes, quick combos or special techniques. Now this is the purest casino where nothing depends on your skill and reaction. Now, do you know what it depends on? Just out of luck that the enemy will not knock down your stamina and you will not run out of steam before him, which turns fights into a theater of the absurd, when you are hiding in corners, afraid to beat, and constantly waiting for a trick. I play Sekiro to feel like a samurai, and then they made a weakling out of me. With what to go for a break, as in the original it will not work. An honest fight is contraindicated. Here they will quickly make a cutlet out of you, much faster than you will remove half of the boss's health. Many of the new attacks have almost the same animation cast, but the blows are different. There was almost no such thing before, now it's standard, and you can't adjust in time for a fraction of a second and repel one of several different attacks. It seems to me it's impossible at the physical level. If they were slower, then there would still be a chance. And so often the casts of these combos are not visually displayed in any way and last about a fraction of a second. As a result, the author forces us to rely on luck and not our straight hands. He wants us to go to the boss 10 times, hoping that on the 11th time we will be lucky and we will unlock all his blows correctly without losing our stamina. And at the same time with this mod, now all enemies have stamina and recovery goes much faster. While you wait for 10 seconds your enemy is 2-3. In the original everything was different. Unfair? Well, it's not fair, it's difficult for that. Isn't that what you wanted? The author grins. I criticized a lot because I expected that the game at least would not rape me in the first minutes of the game. Well, no. There are also advantages. The game has a certain vibe, and avid nerds may like it. The fact that dozens of other mods have already passed and do not know what to do with themselves. The second part of the axe is not the fact that it will come out, which means you can tickle your nerves once again. I don't belong to this category of fans. I think that the game should be honest and not humiliate you, and demand the impossible from you. But the optimization of the mod is wonderful. The feeling that it was done by a really good programmer. There was not one departure in 5 hours of the game. On the contrary, everything is smooth and without falling FPS. Enemies have never been stupid practically, and bosses have never been buggy and stuck in walls. For an amateur level, this is super chic. Now such a performance cannot be done by large corporations with billions of budget, and then some guy wiped his nose at them and showed a gorgeous optimization. This is a rarity and an exception to the rule. Also a big plus, the game has become more unpredictable. Every 2 centimeters of the game world have been redesigned, and now around every corner something is constantly falling on you, and it is impossible to predict what exactly. When I came to Jintiro Castle climbing on the roof, birds fired at me from cannons. There were a lot of them. Well, nonsense. Trying to climb through the window, it suddenly closed with the fog of war. and an infection was released on me that is stronger than Jintaro and Isin combined. While I was thinking what to do with him, I was shot by his comrades from the roofs. This was not in the original and it's not impossible to expect it. Well, in general, yes, I think there will be many masochists who will want to rub their nerves and try out this novelty. The mod is relatively fresh and came out literally a year ago, but I sincerely advise you guys not to do this. And most importantly, because the original is honest with you, and the mod literally requires the impossible that you dodge in a split second and an unreadable attack and hammer each boss for half an hour, removing 0.5% of health to him, while you will be killed at the end with one blow and unreadable combo mobs. Now there are 2-3 times more of them at the levels, they hit harder, they have become smarter, and they will easily destroy you by driving you into a dead end and into a corner in a couple of seconds. How surprised I was when I came to Jintaro Castle, and I was there. Not to say that the bosses have become sharp as diarrhea and there is nothing not to say adequate. These are now real cruel animals that have been released from the enclosure. In the beginning, I got into the old Herat. At this level the player is very weak. For old memory I hurried to take the feathers, which in the original no one was guarding. What was my surprise when I saw a 2-eater purple ninja with 3 lives, which in the original appeared closer to the middle, and here he is in the beginning. About the balance, the author of the mod just wiped his ass, and now an ordinary guard will pile a wise shinobi with dragon blood in a couple of seconds. Moreover, unequal situations have significantly increased. After all, in the original you usually fight against 1-2 opponents. Here on average 5-6 fatter and more active ones pile on you. No matter how you say it, for me a lot of these are disadvantages. Maybe I didn't understand how to play, maybe this is not my mod, but I don't pretend to be the truth. Play for yourself, make up your opinion. And if you are familiar with mods, advise something interesting and I will probably release a video about it. Thank you, and all the best.